Way up high in the Himalayas, in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, there's this incredible story of survival playing out. And it's all about human ingenuity, a little bit of science, and a fruit that just refuses to give up, the Ladakhi apricot.
So picture this, a high-altitude desert. It's rugged, it's stunningly beautiful, but it is harsh. It's a really tough place for anything to grow, let alone fruit trees. And yet, for centuries, the apricot tree hasn't just survived here, it has absolutely thrived. It's become a cornerstone of the entire culture and economy.
Now, the apricot is a pretty tough fruit for sure, but Ladakh pushes that to the absolute limit. We're talking about trees that can handle temperatures dropping to minus 25 degrees Celsius. That's an amazing feat of nature. So how on earth is it possible to grow this fruit when the odds are so stacked against it? What's the secret?
You know, you might think the biggest challenge would be just keeping the trees alive through those brutal winters. But the real fight, the heart of the problem, is actually something way more basic. It's about just getting new, healthy trees into the ground to begin with.
See, the region really needs more apricot trees. It's vital for their food supply and their economy. But for years, growers were hitting this massive roadblock. They just couldn't get their hands on enough healthy, young trees that could actually make it in Ladakh's very unique climate.
The whole problem really can be boiled down to one pretty shocking number, 25 to 30%. That was the grim reality that farmers were facing every single season.
So what does that number mean? Well, that's the survival rate for the young apricot trees that were being imported from other places. For every 4 trees they flew in, 3 of them would probably die. The system was broken. It just wasn't sustainable.
And the reason for this epic failure was a total logistical nightmare. So they'd get the saplings in January or February, but the mountain roads are all closed for the winter, so the trees had to be airlifted in. But you can't actually plant them until March or April. This created this huge, fatal time gap, and most of the young trees just couldn't survive the wait.
So, if importing trees was such a disaster, what was the alternative? Well, the answer, it turns out, was to look inward. They had to come up with a homegrown solution, a way to create new trees right there in Ladakh, perfectly adapted to their home from day one.
And this is the key insight from the researchers who cracked this problem. They realized that growing the plants locally wasn't just an option, it was the only option that made any sense. It was cheaper, way more efficient, and it gave the new trees a much better shot at survival.
Okay, so how do they do it? How do you actually craft a brand new apricot tree that's perfectly suited for this environment right from the start? This is where the science gets really cool.
It all starts with a solid foundation. In the world of horticulture, this is called the rootstock. You can think of it like the chassis of a car. It's the tough, hardy root system that can handle the rocky soil and those extreme temperatures you find in Ladakh. It's the base of the whole operation.
To build this foundation, you start with a simple apricot seed. First, the seeds get a good soak for about a week and a half to soften them up. Then comes this really clever step called stratification. They layer the seeds in moist sand to basically trick them into thinking winter is over, which breaks their dormancy. And finally, come April, they're sown in nursery beds, all ready to grow.
Okay, once you have that healthy rootstock, it's time to attach the part that's actually going to grow the delicious fruit. And there are 2 main ways to do this. There's grafting, where you join a small branch from a really good tree onto the rootstock. It's got about a 90% success rate. But then there's budding, which is even more efficient because you only need a single bud. Its success rate is a tiny bit lower, around 85%. But the big advantage is its flexibility. You can do it in different seasons, which is a huge help for local farmers.
So, growing new trees locally is a fantastic solution. But what if you didn't even have to start from scratch? This next technique we're going to look at might be the most ingenious of all. It's all about transforming what's already there.
Yeah, the real secret weapon in this whole apricot revival isn't just about planting new life. It's about giving new life to what's already standing. It's about looking at these old established orchards and seeing them not as a problem, but as a massive opportunity.
See, the region is full of mature apricot trees with these amazing strong root systems. The only problem? They produce terrible fruit. Small, bitter, sometimes you can't even eat it. And this is where a technique called top working comes in. It's basically a total tree makeover.
And the process is brilliantly simple. First, you cut back all the old, unproductive branches. The tree responds by sending out all these new, energetic shoots.
Then, farmers use that budding technique we just talked about to attach buds from high-quality apricot trees onto these new shoots. And just like that, the old tree is totally transformed and starts producing amazing fruit.
So you're probably wondering, how well does this upcycling of old trees actually work? Well, the results are, honestly, they're incredible. We're looking at a success rate of 90 to 94%.
Let's just put that into perspective for a second. That's the success rate for turning an existing kind of useless tree into a productive one. Now compare that to the measly 25% survival rate for those imported saplings. By focusing on what they already had, the success rate wasn't just doubled or tripled, it was practically quadrupled. It's a game changer.
And this story, it really points to a much bigger idea, right? It shows that sometimes the best solutions to our biggest farming challenges aren't found in complicated global supply chains, but in local knowledge, clever science, and just using the potential that's already in the ground. It really leaves you with a question.